Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag ODPH? Here we go. Welcome to another edition of the ODPH. Shout out to our new listeners on Podbean. My name is Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
The leader in locks and leaps, Padawan J.
Yes, this is true. If you check out our Facebook page, Pat is on top of the leaderboard for locks and leaps. But not far behind is myself and your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy.
What is going on, everybody?
Folks, we have a lot to discuss. Let's waste no more time. Hashtag it up with us. Hashtag ODPH. So let's kick into our locks and leaps. Pat, you want to start us off since you are the reigning champ thus far?
Yes, of course. This week I took the Minnesota Vikings as my lock against the Detroit Lions. Minnesota dominating win in typical fashion, 24-9 win. Incredible day from Kirk Cousins. Oh, not incredible. It was okay. 18 completions on 22 attempts, 164 yards, 1 touchdown. Dalvin Cook had 10 catches for 89 yards and no touchdowns. I just wish I would have seen the notification that what's his name, the wide receiver who made the catch.
Stefon Diggs.
Thank you. Stefon Diggs wasn't playing because I had him starting in my fantasy this week. Shout out to my fantasy team for doing the, apologize for this, coach, doing the New York Giants on the yacht routine.
Oof.
And my whole team no-showed this week.
That is not a good look, Pat.
No, my team, basically, my fantasy team no-showed this week. But I did all right in locks and leaps, so that's good.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Minnesota was clicking at the right time. Beating up on the division foe is always clutch, and they're starting to turn around at the right time. I mean, that's the thing. When Minnesota came out the gate, I mean, there was a lot of high expectations. If you hear Sound Guy Galore JR, obviously he already has a Super Bowl trip booked for the next 3 years.
Yep.
But they kind of came back to earth. I mean, obviously with the game against Buffalo, which is my one shining moment of the season thus far. They looked like maybe they're not Super Bowl contenders, but they're coming around at the right time, and Cousins rather is looking good. Leading the team right now,
yeah.
And the running game, everybody's starting to get healthy again. And I think that's something we all forget about with that team.
And well, not even just that; it was just defensively that team looked like there was something missing from last year, almost a NFC Championship game hangover from that game in Philly. Mm-hmm. That especially if you watch the game against the Rams on Thursday night, they just weren't there defensively.
Oh, yeah.
Offensively, they've been turning wheels, but I think this game was a big breakout game for them to be able to make a statement there.
Right, and they're right there for the division lead in the NFC North. They're 5-3, and they're mere percentage points behind the Chicago Bears in first points. It's that pesky tie.
The crazy thing about this is when we did our preseason show, did any of us predict that the NFC North was going to be the most highly contested division in all the NFL?
No.
I mean, we all thought Chicago would be a step behind with Trubinsky at quarterback, even though they've actually played well, notwithstanding him. They've done well. Defensively, obviously, they're stout, and then we all thought Green Bay would be Green Bay.
Yeah.
And be hanging in the mix, but we all thought Minnesota was going to run away with it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember saying about the Chicago Bears, I wasn't expecting much out of them because, what have they done in the offseason? Not much. I'm being proven wrong thus far.
Yeah, I mean, that's something just moving forward is like this whole division is arguably the best one currently in the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say not. And especially Chicago is clicking at the right time. And obviously getting Khalil Mack is a huge difference factor.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk, it's a day and night difference for the Monsters of the Midway.
Yeah.
So for Minnesota, they need to keep up with the Green Bays and the Chicagos. And Detroit's no slouch either. I mean, they've had some rough games, granted.
But they've played well.
They played well.
Yeah.
They're not a walkover team by any means. So for Minnesota, it's a great win. Pat?
Yeah. Moving over to my leap, I took the Houston Texans defeating the Denver Broncos. Denver was, I believe it was like a 1-point favorite or something small. But there's, like I said, last week's show. So there's something about that Houston Texans team, and they gritty, gutsy win, getting a game-winning field goal there at the end for a 19-17 win. Deshaun Watson, 17 of 24 for 213 yards, 2 touchdowns. Alfred Blue, 15 carries for 39 yards, and then DeAndre Hopkins, 10 catches for 105 yards and 1 touchdown.
It's the scary thing about Houston is they're getting hot at the right time.
Because
I know when they started the season, it was looking shaky. And I think that everybody maybe was jumping off ship, I guess I would say. There was a lot of people that were saying that Houston wasn't going to be able to turn it around. And maybe Deshaun Watson wasn't the Deshaun Watson of last season pre-injury. Obviously, he's proven everybody wrong. Denver, for as bad as they are on offense, and you can't say anything otherwise, their defense has been playing solid.
Yeah.
Bend, not break, but they've been playing solid enough. And this was a highly contested battle that for Houston, you got to say is a great win.
Well, I mean, I would say the biggest thing is this trade for Thomas was huge for them because obviously Hopkins still was able to get off with 10 catches for 105 yards. You know, maybe without Thomas there, maybe it's only 6 catches for 60 yards.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Will Fuller obviously provided a lot for that team as far as getting attention away from Hopkins. That down the stretch now, you got to look at this offense as something scary to face, you know, towards the playoff months.
I'll say the craziest stat I saw after Demaryius Thomas was traded from the Denver Broncos to the Houston Texans was that since he was drafted by the Denver Broncos, he had started every game since 2012 for the Denver Broncos. And, of course, he gets traded. Who's the team he plays the first time he's not putting on a Denver Broncos uniform? Well, he's playing the Broncos.
Meanwhile, Will Fuller is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
As much as I love you, Will, I'm sorry, man.
No, it's the truth, though. And I think for Houston, that's what they need is they need a healthy playmaker on that side of the ball. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen a lot. I mean, Hopkins has been pretty good for staying healthy throughout his career. So this is just an added weapon for Deshaun Watson to use. And if he can stay healthy, I mean, this is a great receiving core on the offensive side of the ball.
Right, and it turns into another scenario like you see with a lot of teams. Okay, Deshaun Watson stays healthy. If you can get the ball going with Alfred Blue, and then you get Hopkins and Demaryius Thomas going, who are you going to cover?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the problem for defensive coordinators moving forward. I mean, that's just something they're going to have to figure out. Coach, who you got for your locks and leaps?
Well, I picked that apple hanging, that low-hanging fruit there. I picked the Chiefs going up against Cleveland there after firing their entire coaching staff.
Well, almost.
You know, you can't. What can you say about this Kansas City team? Obviously, they're playing at a level only of that rivals New England right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just too easy to pass up. Cleveland's still in chaos right now. Who knows what's going on there? Still a lot of turmoil as far as the coaching staff and everything, but Kansas City's looking real solid. Mahomes. I mean, what else can you say about the guy?
I will say this as the resident Patriots fan. I know there's a lot of comparisons being made between the Kansas City Chiefs and the 2007 Patriots, and justifiably so. I will say this. I remember that 2007 season. I lost years off of my life on that 2007 season. I'm looking specifically at, I think it was the Monday night game against Baltimore. The one difference between Kansas City of 2018 and the New England Patriots of 2007, New England wasn't putting up points like this.
Well, and I was just going to say, I think that's the one problem with this Kansas City team was obviously they were, they weren't participants in the recent trade deadline, and I really think that they really needed to make a play in the secondary. That's probably their weakest spot overall as a team. I mean, offensively, offensive line, they're great. I think they got a reigning Pro Bowler, if not 2. Travis Kelce, obviously, Hunt. They got wide receiver weapons. Mahomes is slinging the ball around. Just defensively, when you really break down their defense, it's like where are they having a gap right now, and it's in the secondary. And I know that they were talking to the Giants about Janoris Jenkins, and that kind of fell through. But at the end of the day, there was still Clinton Dix was out there. There's trades that were available that they just didn't make a move on.
But I think the only reason maybe, and this is just my guess at this, is either one, the asking price for like Clinton Dix was too high, and they didn't want to do it, and they're probably looking at their team and saying, okay, this season our defense has been playing okay.
Yeah.
Hasn't been lights out, hasn't been a shutdown one, but our offense is doing so well that we feel that we can come from behind at any point. I mean, it's a risky mentality to have.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the only thing I was thinking, because I do agree with you. I thought at the trade deadline they might make a move here and there on the defensive side of the ball. They didn't, and I'm just going, okay, maybe the mentality is we have, arguably an MVP caliber quarterback currently right now, and stats don't lie about the whole season, that we feel that with him leading our team down the field, we can take over a game, and we can definitely come from behind if we need to.
Now, my counter argument to that would be, though, is the teams that you're looking at and comparing them to, the Chargers and the Patriots, all also have equally good offenses, and the Patriots defense has actually played surprisingly better than what you would have thought going into the year. And the Chargers defense, is very good.
Oh, it's very underrated.
So, I mean, when you think about playing from behind almost in that aspect of, we're all offense, that's a very dangerous mentality to go into games with, because you don't want to have to play from behind, because you want to be able to dictate offensively what you want them to do, what they're able to do offensively.
I agree. No, like I said, this is my guess at it, because I was agreeing with you that I think that, they should have made a defensive move. But if they didn't, then that's the only mentality that I think that makes some sense. That they feel that, our team is playing at such an elite level right now. Why rock the boat and try making some moves? That's the only thing. But I think it's gutsy to do. But if they are really, feeling that they can do it with this team as is, then why make a move? I mean, that's the only thing that can kind of justify that. And obviously, this was a big win against Cleveland. Cleveland is not the Cleveland of old.
No.
Albeit, though, it's a little turmoil in the.
They are kind of the Cleveland of old right now.
Yes and no. I mean, on the coaching side of the ball, yes. But player-wise, definitely not. And I think they were hanging with Kansas City until halftime.
Yeah.
They were definitely in that game.
Say halftime, it was 21-15.
Yeah, so I mean, right there, they were definitely hanging in there. It's just the second half, Kansas City took over, they made the adjustments, and Cleveland struggled a bit. But Cleveland is still a young team, and they're definitely going to do some moves later on. And obviously with Baker Mayfield, this is a big learning curve for him.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously the expectations are kind of out the window right now, because obviously you lose your head coach, you lose your offensive coordinator your first year. This is kind of uncharted water for a rookie.
I mean, this is probably uncharted. This is really uncharted for an organization. Mid-season to fire 2 coaches. So like we talked about last week.
Yeah, you would think. So obviously moving forward, they're going to have some work to do, and Kansas City is Kansas City. Enough said.
Yeah. My leap, guys, I picked the Rams.
Yeah?
Yeah. That didn't go according to plan. So I was banking on the Rams not, winning outright. I thought they were going to go into the Superdome and, at least, I didn't necessarily think they were going to blow them out, but I at least thought they would be competitive. And boy, oh boy, those New Orleans Saints at home are dangerous.
They're a scary team at home. I would say arguably the scariest team at home. And like I said, it's very debatable. But for the Rams, this was a definite wake-up call.
Well, I think, and I watched a lot of this game, I think the biggest thing was that they pretty much not necessarily laid out a blueprint, but they just showed that Jared Goff might not be necessarily ready for that moment. He did win a game earlier in the year for the Rams, but the Saints made them take the ball out of Todd Gurley's hand, and by doing that, you're basically effectively cutting off the offense for the Rams.
Say Todd Gurley, 13 carries for 68 yards, averaged 5.2 yards per carry.
But that's because this Rams team, or this Saints team, is now playing a run-style game. I mean, they are not, this shoot 'em, running. Yeah, they're not run and shoot right now. They are balanced offensively, and that, by them making sure that they're putting 7 up on every possession that they get, is dictating the other team that you better either score or take up time on the clock. And if they hold them defensively and they're punting, I mean, that's how you win games right there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're a fan of offense and you really hate defense, this was the game for you. Jared Goff, 28 of 40 for 391 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Drew Brees, 25 of 36 for 346 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. And like you said, if you're going up against the New Orleans Saints, you got to be prepared to put up points and match them, because I'm looking at this second quarter alone. The LA Rams put up 10 points, and the Saints put up 3 scores.
I mean, the biggest stat that stuck out there is the number of touches for Gurley.
Yeah.
Period. He can't be only getting 19 touches. And by what the Saints were able to do by making sure that they went down and scored every possession in that first half, they basically dictated that, hey, you better come out the second half and throw against us, because we're not going to let you run anymore.
Yeah, and there's no way that Breeze is going to lose in a shootout.
No, exactly, no. And the Saints defense, surprisingly, is looking pretty good, especially against the run.
Yeah, they're playing very quietly. And I mean, like you say, nobody's really talking about them, but they're keeping the teams in check that they're facing.
Yeah, I mean,
and
obviously, against the pass, they are still very weak.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that's always been the Saints' MO. The pass game has always been a weakness, but when you're trying to run up against that front 7, if Todd Gurley's only getting 68 yards, good luck.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch. And dare I say, kudos to Michael Thomas, to do the Joe Horn.
Yes.
I'm sorry. That, to me, that was just a throwback to throwbacks right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was out of nowhere, too. And I saw him go to the field goal of the post there, and I saw him lift the thing up, and I'm like, no,
Yeah,
he's not.
albeit though, you might. Granted, I do appreciate the showmanship.
Yeah.
I do, but time and place, and
The worst time and place.
yeah, that's my only argument with it. Like if you did it on the first score, but granted, I'm sure he was waiting to get down to that side of the field, and if
Well,
it
no,
happened,
he had him on both ends of the field.
see, that's wild to me.
I remember
So
they asked
wild.
they asked him about this after the game in the locker room, and somebody asked him, "Did you plan it on that end zone, or did you have one on both?" Because he went to like a drugstore or something like that and just bought a phone to have, and he had one on both ends of the field.
So just imagine if they would have held him out of the end zone,
Uh-huh.
and then those phones would have been non void there.
No,
Yep.
but Thomas definitely is an emerging star in the league. He's going to have some help now as the Saints have signed Des Bryant as we were
Whoa.
recording.
Yeah, crazy.
Which is wild to think, again, that they're getting more loaded on the offensive side of the ball.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, so the thing with that is that obviously they got to catch him up to speed, and luckily he's played. I think played in a Sean Payton system. I think it might have been his rookie season. Sean Payton was still there in Dallas as the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So at least some of the verbiage will be the same. But I mean, you still got to catch him up to speed. And I'm looking at it right now, and it looks like they don't have a bye week this week. So I would probably be surprised if he played this week. And
Yeah.
you might see him next week, and you know
they
that
might do
week
they might do
against
like the Patriots did
Eagles.
with Josh Gordon. He'll be in a couple of plays, but very limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have to break him in, but for how depleted their wide receiver core is, I think it's a good sign-in for New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, it was the only play with Tengen Jr. out, obviously, for the rest of the year with the knee. I mean, they needed somebody on the other side of Thomas.
I will say this though: circle your calendars. Thursday night, November 29th, on the Thursday night game in Dallas. New Orleans versus the Cowboys.
That could be something to see.
Uh-huh.
I'm expecting some fireworks on that one. So I guess we should go into my locks and leaps. So my lock, I took those San Francisco 49ers. Had no idea who's going to be quarterback.
No idea.
So it could have been the guy in front row.
No,
It was the guy in front row, actually.
Oh.
it quite possibly, but it was Nick Mullins who threw for 262 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, who?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, he was playing against the JV Alabama football team.
This is true.
I will grant you that, but you know what? I will say this. If you were facing a bad team and your team is somewhat good, you need to beat that bad team.
Well, I mean, the 49ers aren't even somewhat good, though. They just stuck it to him.
But they showed up. They decided to actually say, you know what, we're going to play for pride. We're going to definitely win the Battle of the Bay. And they stepped up. I mean, I don't know that many players on the 49ers. I will admit this. Because
I'm looking at the thing. I know at least one, Alfred Morris.
No, Alfred Morris and, I mean, George Kittle there, too, as their tight end. Or Kittle, rather, should I say.
Richard Seymour is there, or Sherman. Richard Sherman.
Exactly.
Okay,
you,
fair
see,
enough.
you see that we're trying to stretch for this.
Yeah.
But the point is, the Niners definitely, obviously, losing Jimmy G beginning of the year has been kind of a bubble team. You really don't know what you're going to get out of them. And to see that they're finding a spark on the offensive side of the ball, and I mean, granted, it is Oakland, and Oakland is what Oakland is.
Oh God,
Let's not lie
just
about it.
abysmal. As one of my friends put it, I don't know if the Giants can outsuck Oakland right now.
No,
that's how bad
because you're not
they are.
trading away your entire starting offensive team for first-round picks.
Well, not even that. I'm not cutting everybody.
Yeah, this is true too.
Yeah, you want to talk about a team in turmoil. This one, I think, is a worse situation than Cleveland.
It definitely has me sitting here every time something comes out about the Raiders, usually bad these days. I sit there and kind of go, really? Gruden came out of the booth for this?
Well, and what's crazy is that I saw a report come out of Oakland that is one of those unnamed sources that said that Gruden is not that you look at the players that are successful right now, these young 30 or so whether it's the Rams or Sean Payton in New Orleans and how they connect with the players. Gruden's still coaching like it's 1998.
And that's the problem.
And it's a dictatorship versus, a union of you with the players.
And that doesn't work. I mean, this is just...
Not in today's day and age. No, it doesn't.
No, because the game has evolved. And it's just a different era.
I mean, his brother could have told him that because when Gruden started in Washington, he tried to do the whole dictatorship, and that changed real quick.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different era. So to see if the Gruden era in Oakland is going to change remains to be seen. But for Frisco, and like I say, they're doing this with not big names, but they're winning games, and they're competing in games too. I mean, they haven't been blown out a lot this year.
I mean, they've got a big one coming up on Monday night against the Giants.
Oh, they got a big one. Which
it's big. ESPN is, salivating over this matchup.
But those are the games that, when they fly under the radar, that they'll turn out to be the best games of the week.
Hey, I hope they all more power to you, 49ers. I hope you blow the Giants out 34-3 too.
Yeah, because it's draft pick time.
Yeah, exactly.
And for my leap, I should have went with my gut. I should have. And I sat there. I was like, no, Pittsburgh. I was originally taking Pittsburgh over Baltimore, and I should have gone with it.
Yep.
Should have. No, but I was like, you know what? GOAT versus GOAT. Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. Maybe, just maybe, if there's one guy that can go into Foxborough, show no fear on Sunday night, it is one and only Aaron Rodgers. But boy, I was wrong. I will admit that. I mean, this was definitely a fun game to watch.
Yeah. Let's say, just let the record show, Julian Edelman has a better passer rating than Tom Brady for this game.
Yeah, this is definitely something to see. And obviously, you seeing what Brady was doing, 294 with a touchdown, compared to Rodgers, 259 and 2 touchdowns. But it was just one of those matchups that was going blow for blow until the second half.
Think of it as, though, as I think the Patriots from the outset really went to, establish their will over the game, because you look at that first drive of the game where Green Bay won the coin toss and deferred to the second half, and how, so Patriots get the ball and they then go do, I think it was like 10 plays in like 2.5 minutes down the field, which had Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth both.
Not even. It was like a minute 45. They didn't even have room to speak.
It had Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth going, that is the fastest we've ever seen them move. Like, I remember watching replays of this, and like you had linemen and linebackers not even set yet. Like, they still had their mouthpieces out, and they're saying,
literally Clay Matthews at one point was still trying to get the play in from the sideline, trying to dictate guys where to go, and he was turned around as they were snapping the ball. That's how quick they were snapping the ball off.
It just goes to show, I mean, like I said, I got to give the Devils their due. The Patriots are a tough team to beat any day of the week.
Yep.
Let alone at home. And you need to play almost perfect.
I'm going to say at home when they're bringing in the Red Sox in the World Series trophy and on a duck boat.
There's just a lot going on with the Patriots. So you need to play lights out. You need to get the ball out of Tom Brady's hands.
And in a very Bill Belichick move, moving Cordell Patterson to running back, I think is going, I mean, I don't know if he'll stand there the rest of the year, but that move alone in that game was just flabbergasting to the Green Bay Packers.
That's the second week they've done that, because I remember they did that the previous week.
Yeah, but it was like 5 snaps, like not even. Like that, this game he was actually back there a lot, which I think for him, realistically, actually probably is a better position for him than wide receiver.
Oh, yeah, because he's just a monster. He's like beast mode 2.0, because I remember there was one point where he gets handed the ball, and I forget who the Green Bay defender was, but like he had a hold of him and was like stretching his jersey out, giving everything he could to stop him, and he's just pulling him along for the ride.
Yeah, I think just getting that, I mean, obviously he's a punt return, and this is what always kills me about like when I would play Madden or something. I mean, I would always want my running backs to be my returners, because you want those guys who can break tackles. So, I mean, you talk about a guy who returns in space. What is that but a running back position? Get the guy the ball as early and often as you can.
Say if memory serves, Patriots haven't had a punt return for a touchdown since like 2014.
Sure, and I mean that's whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, you want to get this guy the ball in space, and he knows how to run in between tacklers. That's what you do on a punt return and kickoff return. So why not just put him in the backfield and let him go?
Well, saying the Patriots were definitely opening the playbook and having fun with it. I mean, they were in the flea flicker at one point. Edelman threw the one pass. I mean, you look at the receiving. Josh Gordon finally emerging and really maybe showing, all right, I've got this system down. 5 catches for 130 yards, 1 touchdown.
They showed up when they needed to, and then it was definitely a classic GOAT versus GOAT game. I mean, what else can you really say? And the Patriots have another offensive weapon. Look out, because that's just a scary factor to throw in. But that was our locks and leaps for this week. So hashtag it up with us, ODPH. What was your take on this past week in the NFL? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is George Gatton, and you are listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition.
Come back for segment number 2 on this week's ODPH, and there was some UFC action this past week.
Oh boy, was there ever, from the Garden.
Stat card at the Garden, UFC 230. Definitely a few fight moments that stuck out. And there is an emerging contender at 185.
Yep.
Israel Adesanya. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The last style bender came in, had a statement win over Derek Brunson. Definitely is in the top 5 contention now.
Easily.
Easily.
Got to be at 15-0.
I mean, yeah, 15-0, 13 knockouts.
And you TKO Derek Brunson in the first round. Now, granted, it was like 9 seconds left in the round, but still, you TKO Derek Brunson in the first round.
Yeah, that is definitely a moment for other fighters and Dana White and company to really take notice that you're now giving him top 10 competition, and look what he's doing. I'm not making the comparison to John Jones just yet.
No.
But I'm just saying how he is in the octagon. There's definitely some style, things, comparisons, I guess, similarities, that's the word I'm looking for, between them. And especially how he was making adjustments in the fight to definitely get that knockout late.
Yeah.
That was just something, like I said, I haven't really seen that since John was really coming up in the fight game. And to see, obviously, in his post-fight interview, he was critiquing himself.
Yeah.
And he gave himself, Coach, did you catch the grade he gave himself?
No, I did not catch that.
So he gets the first round knockout. What do you think he gives himself?
I mean, I would think that you would give yourself at least a B.
B minus.
Okay.
He said B minus. He goes, I
Well,
had to work on some stuff, and
It was
it was late in the first round, so that's why you got to give the minus.
Well, and
Yeah.
it was an offhanded thing because I think when Rogan went to go interview him, Rogan just like an offhanded, because we've all said this. He walks up to, hey, A+ performance out there tonight, and he goes, nah, you know what? I really give myself a B minus.
yeah, he just really was very humble about it. And another comparison I was going to make with that is, it almost reminded me in that in the interviews he did, because I know he did one with Joe Rogan, and I know he did one in the post fight too. He almost sounded like Demetrius Johnson. Because when Demetrius is in the cage and he's critiquing his fight, he will tell you exactly what he did wrong.
Right.
Even though he does, a dominating performance for 25 minutes and he's, working for the finish.
Which, I mean, that separates the good from the great.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you can figure out what you're doing as the minor mistakes. Now, granted, we all watch the MMA game all over the place. I know I probably watch most out of anybody in the panel. But when you can start picking that up mid-fight and let alone talk about it immediately after the fight,
Yeah.
that's a scary X factor that we don't really talk about.
It really says something about a fighter that, like, okay, he's picking things up mid-fight, and then post-fight, he's talking about the mistakes he made. Me personally, if I'm in his shoes, I'm having to probably watch video 3-4 times before I'm realizing, oh, there's what I did wrong and there's what my opponent did.
And now to see where he goes, obviously you got to give him a top 5 contender.
I'd say so.
Without question. I don't have a name necessarily. I mean, obviously at 185, I'd like to see him fight Luke Rockhold.
Ooh, that'd be a good one.
I mean, Luke didn't fight
That's a
last.
test.
He didn't fight last time or on this card because he, is dealing with an injury. But I'm looking at it that if Adesanya does not have a major injury,
Sure.
Luke is healthy enough that we can book this fight. I don't know, February.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw this out there. That's the fight you make, and that's the true test in the water, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely the test, or it's definitely the litmus test that goes, okay, is this kid for real, or is this just a flash in the pan?
Yeah, but I think the kid's for real. I mean, obviously he's gone up this far. He hasn't really shown any real weakness in his game. He's gone in there, he's done what he's needed to do, and I tell you what, that is a name to watch coming up in the UFC, without question. So let's jump into the co-main events since we're talking about middleweights. Dare I say, Chris Weidman, Jacare Souza, fight of the night without question.
Yes.
And did it go the way we all thought it was going to go?
Yeah, I couldn't really figure out how this sucker was going to go watching the fight. It was back and forth so much. I was like, I had no idea who was going to win this thing.
I did not catch this one. I did not watch that. I did see the Cormier fight. So.
Okay. All right. This one, for me, I was very surprised at. And I will say more so that Jacare was standing up with him. Because I would have figured Jacare's bread and butter is to take him to the ground and then you never get up.
Yeah.
That is what Jacare does. For Weidman, obviously having a lot of time off since his last fight, we really weren't sure what we were going to get out of him. But he was winning that fight.
Oh, yeah.
He won both rounds on my card. That he was standing there trading shots, landing some good shots, but Jacare stood there too. I mean, they weren't going rock'em sock'em by any means.
No.
But they were going back and forth. That it was like, okay, if you're not going to try taking him down, this is going to be a matter of striking, and this is going to be whoever last standing.
I would say it was very much a chess match of a fight. It wasn't, like you see in some heavyweight fights or some other fights where it's just one guy bum rushing the other guy and just destroying him with everything he had. It was very much, okay, I do this, you do that, back and forth.
Yeah, it was very, tactical, I guess I could say. That's probably the easiest way I could describe it. It was just one of those that they were matching punch for punch, and they weren't going crazy. This wasn't Clay Guida, Diego Sanchez, back in the heyday, which still
I wouldn't have minded that,
Oh,
though.
that was the greatest first round in MMA history, in my opinion. hashtag it up with me if you want to talk about it otherwise. This was, with Souza, though, this was a great win for him. And for Weidman, I don't look at this as a bad loss. I know he's lost a couple recently, or in his last couple fights, rather. But for him, he looked great in this fight. And it wasn't somebody that I didn't look at him and go, he's on the decline of his career. This was just he lost a good fight.
So he lost a good fight to a good fighter, and this is him. You hear about it in professional wrestling all the time, ring rust. Well, the octagon rust, where, we've said it before, and I'm sure Common Man and Luke Visengard can tell you the same thing. You can only get so much experience by sparring a guy. If I'm sparring you, that does great wonders, and it's awesome, but it's not a real fight. And there are certain things in a real fight that you just can't do in a simulated fight.
Yeah, because you're fighting the same guys over and over in your camp. Yeah. So obviously when you're taking on somebody else who's training a different way, it's a different thing to get into. For Chris Weidman, being a former world champion, obviously he knows what he's getting into. And for him to come back and look how he did, I mean, you really didn't see too much cage rust.
No.
I wouldn't think so. I think he did enough that he was going to win that fight, but he just got clipped, and then when he got clipped, he got clipped.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, the rest is pretty much self-explanatory. So it's going to be interesting to see where those fighters go from here on out. I think Jacare, you got to put in a number one contender fight after this.
Yeah.
Weidman, you know what? He might be somebody that fights Asianda.
Mm-hmm.
Or Adesanya. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Adesanya. That could be another fight for him coming up in 185.
That could very well could be.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. And also, I could also see Weidman going to 205.
Okay.
Just maybe at this stage of the career, it might be time to go up a division. I know there was talk way back when that he wanted to go up there and fight John Jones. Obviously, that never happened. But at this stage in the career, it's like, you know what? A different weight class might be something for him to try.
Yeah.
So let's get into the main event.
Oh, boy.
Daniel Cormier, dual light heavyweight champion and heavyweight champion versus Derek Lewis, who is an extreme underdog going into this fight.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Coach, you did see this fight.
Well, I saw the highlights of it. Yeah, I mean...
Was this pretty much how you expected the fight was going to go?
Yeah, I mean, at this point of the game for Derek Lewis, I mean, obviously I know that he's probably had experience, but you're talking about fighting a champion, not necessarily championship rounds, but just fighting a seasoned veteran like this. Somebody that's going to be able to take a punch. So DC submitting him does not surprise me because he was just able to be tactical.
Yeah, this one went exactly how I thought it was going to go, too.
Yeah, I mean, we fully expected Cormier to get the win. I think the only way I think any of us really expected Lewis to get the win is if he was going to, get a lucky clip in and knock Cormier out. I mean, I think Common Man Vince Ciotoli put it best. We all expected this, but it was a little disappointing to not see something a little longer.
Well, you know what? For Lewis, I don't think it was a bad situation to lose in a title fight. I think it's something that he obviously has a ground game that needs work.
Yes.
Without question.
Yes.
And I mean, that's DC's strength is getting people to the ground, know? So, I mean, that's just playing strength to weaknesses.
And DC has been around the game long enough that he knew exactly what he needed to do. He wasn't going to stand there and trade shots with
No,
Lewis.
absolutely not.
No.
Get him to the ground, lay on him, cover his mouth, making him breathe hard. Absolutely.
Yeah, he did it pretty much. It was tactical to par.
So it was DC's bread and butter.
Yeah, Lewis, I mean, if he kept him in like a dirty boxing clinch, then that was going to be his only shot to win. But DC knew this, and DC was smart enough to get him to the ground. And then once he got him to the ground, you definitely saw the skill level difference.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it is what it is. DC is an Olympic-style wrestler.
Yep.
Caliber wrestler.
There's nothing you can say,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, you can't argue that.
No.
Without anything, said more. But going into that, immediately what happens after he wins the fight?
Well, first he gets 2 belts, and he's all excited because he didn't think Dana would do it, but no, he's there, 2 belts on his shoulders, looking awful nice.
Mm-hmm. And then immediately calls out
one Brock Lesnar.
This is the fight I keep saying they're gonna make. I'm waiting to see a date.
I still disagree.
And you know what? I've heard now that Brock has got a new WWE deal.
I really don't think this will happen. As cool as it would be to see these guys go at it, I don't think it'll happen because as we record, Brock Lesnar has re-upped his WWE wrestling contract through WrestleMania, which is in April. So if you're Vince McMahon, who had no issue loaning Brock Lesnar for UFC 200, there's no way you're going to let him go in against Cormier at any date before WrestleMania, because you look at what happened, as we mentioned a couple weeks ago, with Roman Reigns going down and being out for an indeterminate amount of time. There's no way you're going to let Brock Lesnar go fight a UFC fight any date before WrestleMania and risk getting injured in some way. Now, I'm not saying Daniel Cormier is going to go in there and bust his hand or bust his arm or something like that. No, that could happen. There could also be something freaky and just unplanned.
See,
it's just a tough time frame. I
Yeah,
mean, you're talking about, for the people that do, listen to the show and watch wrestling. I mean, this obviously everybody knows is becoming the busiest time of the year for them.
Yeah.
Between the big pay-per-views and then obviously the payoff show in March. And, for the UFC, obviously, DC just fighting in November. Now, I haven't seen the statements released as far as medical suspensions, but, I mean...
I don't think he has any.
I haven't heard anything.
So, I mean, but I think it's a minimum of a month, right?
It's minimum 45 days.
45 days.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
that already puts us in
Late
December.
December.
They obviously already have the card built for that. Now you're talking January,
Yep.
the earliest, Royal Rumble time. I mean...
See,
time frame, tough.
Yeah, my earliest prediction was they're going to do Super Bowl, but now I'm thinking maybe not. And it also depends if they still want to go with Brock against Cormier for heavyweight. To me, I'm losing interest in this one because it almost seems like it's too, just how the back and forth has been too WWE like for my MMA fan tasting.
Well, exactly. And for me, it's just like, DC calling him out. I mean, it's just out of nowhere. I understand there might not be a necessary, real heavyweight contender right now for him to fight. I mean, to me, the fight and the money fight is still John. Because the cementing the legacy, you want to talk about how you're the greatest of all time. Obviously, John's got a big fight coming up in December against Gustafsson. So, I mean, that obviously has to happen first. But for me, you can't just go into retirement and saying I'm the greatest of all time, but still have a loss. Period.
Well, that's going to be the trick pony because if John gets past Gustafsson and he gets away unscathed, which I don't see happening, I think that John is going to be out for a while, just because I don't think he's going to run right through Gustafsson. I don't see that. But,
no.
But that's for another show. But if they can book this fight and they do John against Cormier, John would have to step to heavyweight.
Yeah.
I can agree with. I would like to see that.
Because I don't see DC doing that weight cut anymore. I just don't think that the ambition's there. And for John, he's always talked about moving up to heavyweight, which I think would be a good look for him to do at this stage.
Well, and I think it would be good for the UFC to do, too, to have somebody in the heavyweight division right now to push DC, because obviously there's nobody there.
Well, the fight they won't make, which I don't understand why, and I'm not going to try politicking about it, is why not the rematch with Miocic? To me, if you don't have Brock ready, because I know that everybody was banking on that after the super fight originally happened with Miocic and Cormier, why not make that rematch? Because like you said, there really isn't anybody at heavyweight that you can throw in there. I mean, Derek Lewis is a name, sure. And I think they did that because obviously going to the UFC at the Garden and the turmoil that was going on with the main events there, we were supposed to have Diaz versus Poirier, and then that fell through, and then the flyweight title, and then, just all that drama that was going on with that.
Well, I think, too, is DC, I mean, obviously has been very open with looking towards the end game here.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's what, 40?
Yeah, he's turned
He'll
40
be
in March.
40 in March.
So, I mean, that's when he said that he was looking to retire. So it's like, all right, if he's willing to take one more fight, maybe push the retirement out till, the summertime, then you might be able to still get your Brock fight. But if it's not before then, he's very adamant about that retirement March. I mean, there's just nobody for him.
No, there isn't. And, I mean, obviously, that's going to be a tough call for him to make. Like I said, at this point, I'm kind of losing the interest in the Lesnar fight because with him getting re-signed with the WWE, it's going to be a timetable issue like we've already discussed.
Right, because I'm looking at the UFC schedule on their official website, and they go out as far as UFC 233, which is to be determined versus to be determined. It's Saturday, January 26th in Anaheim, California. Okay. One small issue is the Royal Rumble is the next night in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, so...
Well, Brock really hasn't fought now in almost a year and a half, and when he fought, it was not anything great, right? I mean,
no.
So it's like, really, what is the excitement about him coming back to fight, this world-class championship fighter right now?
The only excitement is that Brock is one of the biggest pay-per-view draws.
Sure, it's the name and the money.
It's a big money fight with a marketable name. That's it.
Yeah.
For like a sports standpoint, there really isn't. I mean, obviously he had to leave the sport due to medical issues at the time. He's trying to come back.
Terribly.
Yeah, which he's trying to come back, and I get that, but at the same token, it's a lot of you want to talk about cage rust, and especially with Cormier, who's been active all this time. You really haven't seen him on the shelf too much, and especially if he's taking fights on short notice to fight Derek Lewis.
Right.
He's staying active, and he knows he has his window to, is closing at some point. I think
Right.
he's accepting, he's losing to Father Time. Everybody does.
Oh, yeah.
So for him, if you can't make the fight with Lesnar, you can't make the fight with John, depending on what happens December 29th. And we're hoping everybody stays healthy.
Right, yeah.
Because, how stuff could happen between now and then. Then I think the only fight you can make is Miocic. For me, that's the only one that makes sense. Now, is that the one he wants to go out on? Debatable.
Right.
I mean, I think it's for, a competitor standpoint, sure. I think that makes most sense. But it remains to be seen. But there's a lot going on with the UFC, though, these days. So let us know what you think. Hashtag it up with us, ODPH. What's your thoughts on this past weekend of the UFC action? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shake radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Ciatoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shake radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for segment number 3 on this week's ODPH, and we got to talk a little basketball. So let's talk a little NBA first. So, Pat, who's leading top of the divisions right now?
Well, looking at the Eastern Conference, I'll give you the top 5. Top 5 in the Eastern Conference are, as we record, is the Toronto Raptors with a 10-1 record.
There you go.
Holy cow! Second place is the Milwaukee Bucks with an 8-2 record. Third place is the Indiana Pacers with a record of 7-4. The Boston Celtics are sitting at 4th with a 6-4 record. And the Philadelphia 76ers are 5th with a 6-5 record.
Yeah, I tell you what, did anybody think Toronto was going to be doing this good out the gate?
Yes, yes, because one, LeBron James is not there.
Well, I definitely didn't think that they would be ahead of Boston right now.
I didn't think they were going to be ahead of Boston. That's shocking to me right now.
I think that's just the difference Kawhi Leonard is making on that team, because I've seen a couple players who've gone against Toronto, and they come out of the game, win, loss, they go, yeah, that team's no joke.
I think, well, it's not just Kawhi Leonard. I think Danny Green has also brought something to this team that people aren't talking about.
Yeah, Toronto's playing at such a high level right now. It'd be fun to watch. If you get a chance to watch them, they're fun to watch.
Yeah, they are, especially with Kawhi defensively, because you just don't see it often.
No, especially not the NBA level.
No, I mean, then looking at the bottom 5 of the conference, the Atlanta Hawks are 5th from the bottom with a record of 3-7. Chicago Bulls are down there with 3-8. You've got the New York Knicks with a record of 3-8. Washington Wizards with a record of 2-8, and the Cleveland Cavaliers with a record of 1-9.
Yeah, not a lot you can say right there.
No, other than, what did I see? J.R. Smith wants out of Cleveland.
Yeah, I think the exodus from the Cavs is taking place, even though they did finally get their interim head coach signed for the rest of the year, Larry Drew, I believe.
Yep, Larry Drew signed a deal for the rest of the year and a partial guarantee for next year. Not quite sure what that means, but I'm running with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was just a messy situation.
I've never heard of that in the NBA or any sport where it's like, okay, we'll guarantee for the rest of the year and we'll partially guarantee next year. I mean, maybe it's just we'll wait and see and we'll assess at the end of the year. Well, we'll see. Switching out west, in first top 5 in the West. Of course, we all expected this. Nothing surprising here. Golden State Warriors are in first place with a record of 10-1. Second place is the Denver Nuggets with a record of 9-1. Third place is the Portland Trail Blazers with a record of 8-3. San Antonio Spurs are in 4th with a record of 6-3. And then rounding out the top 5, you have the LA Clippers with a record of 6-4.
See, that is just kind of crazy to see, because now we go into the big game from last night.
Yep.
Because that's why we're mentioning the last place teams, because they are eyeing some talent that was featured last night in the Duke at Kentucky game for the State Farm Classic.
Wait a minute, I thought Syracuse versus Eastern Washington was game of the night.
Not on my watch, Pat.
Oh, okay.
Those bottom 5 teams are playing for the real grand prize, which is that entire Duke roster.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Who may be getting substituted with the Cavs this season. We don't know. That might happen, but
could happen.
Thoughts around the panel about the Duke Blue Devils last night?
I think you mean the Monstars, because I watched that entire first half, and my God, they played Kentucky, guys. They played Kentucky.
Number 2 ranked Kentucky.
Not Eastern Kentucky of Wichita State. This was the Kentucky Wildcats, and they dismantled this team from top to bottom, from side to side, from angle to angle. They absolutely obliterated this team.
Yeah, there was no question about this. This was just, I don't know any way you can say it otherwise. It was just a domination.
I'll say it was definitely an eye-opener because everyone knows the reputation with Kentucky. I mean, they're not coming out ranked number 2 just for grins and giggles. No. I mean, when you put out a dominating fashion against the number 2 ranked team in the country and you win 118-84, wow.
And the crazy thing about this Kentucky team is it's not the top 5 freshmen like they're used to and accustomed to. This team is actually they have a grad transfer from Stanford, and they have a couple juniors on this team that they don't normally have, and they got beaten by a team that's playing their style.
Yeah. It was almost like a mirror image, and you saw just the talent level at Duke this season is the bar that everybody needs to catch up to quick.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't, you're going to get... I mean, listen, Syracuse fans, I am sorry, but I hope you play a 2-3 zone against this team because I can't wait to watch the highlight reel of Zion Williamson just getting backdoored alley-oops all day.
I mean, R.J. Barrett, 33 points. Zion Williamson, 28 points. On Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you even go from there?
And they didn't even play the entire game. They didn't even play the entire game and still put up 30 points.
I mean, it's just wild to see them see Kentucky get punched in the mouth like that. Like I said, I'm struggling to find the words for it.
Barrett played 32 minutes and scored 33 points. He's scoring a clip at a point a minute.
He is a truth.
Yeah.
He is the absolute truth. If they give that nickname back out to somebody, it's him. Because my God, what he did on that court.
On that one.
Well, get it because he needs it. My God, that man came up, and I was telling you when we were talking before the show, there was a transition play where they made a steal. The ball got down the post. RJ was trailing the play. They kicked it out to him with a man in his face, fearless, pulls up for 3.
Yeah, I mean the swagger they showed in one game, and I get it's one game.
But it's Kentucky.
It's not like they were playing any slouch school, Division III, people that just get together on the weekends. No, this is Kentucky who people were saying were going to be contending for a national championship. And could still are. I mean, granted, it's one game. But, like, the sheer dominance that Duke showed last night as we were taping.
Just for a comparison here, Syracuse played East Washington. Anybody familiar with that roster?
Wait a minute. No.
Okay. Well, they scored 34 points against Syracuse, who, plays that great 2-3 zone. But Syracuse only scored 66.
Right, and the thing with Syracuse, people remember, is they typically will do this early in the year. Well, they will play like Lemoyne and schools you might not have heard of before they really start getting into the
Duke
team.
had 60 at halftime. Wrap this around your head.
59.
Oh, well, God, okay, close enough.
Weird thing about this game is they each scored the same amount of points in both halves. 59 points in the first half for Duke, 42 in the first half for Kentucky. Second half, 59-42.
It's just something
weird I found.
Oh, no, that is... I mean, hey, you're the guy with the stats pad. No question about that.
I'm looking at the top 25 that pretty much every team kicked off, the last night. And I'm looking at Nevada beat BYU by 16. Oregon beat Portland State by, 20 or so. Tennessee beat Lenoir-Rhyne by 40.
We'll say Gonzaga beat Idaho State 120-79.
Yeah, Clemson beat the Citadel by 20. And then you got Duke beating Kentucky by 30.
They ran them out of the gym.
And I can't fathom the fact that 4 freshmen played this well. Because even Kentucky's team, for as good as they've been the last few years with these freshmen, never opened a season by beating a top-ranked team by this much. Ever.
No, this hasn't been seen, dare I say, I don't want to make the comparisons because I've heard it enough today, of the Michigan Fab Five.
I mean, honestly, I saw everybody compare that, and I know that was a different era, but this team would take it to that team. I don't care. They would take it to them.
Yeah, I mean, this is just something to sit back and watch, and you just got to go like, holy cow, like, to just compare of the level now. I mean, this is going to be something fun to watch. Everybody stays healthy.
Now, obviously, there's going to be a slip-up every year. I mean, even the Kentucky teams, for as great as they were, there always is a slip-up down the road, but this team is something different.
Yeah, there's just something different about them, like the swagger and just how they played. I mean, they just said, okay, how do you want us to beat you tonight? Because literally it got to that point that they're just like, okay, we're going to start pulling up for shots. We're going to pull up for Jays.
Trey Jones is the number 4 recruit in the nation at the time when he signed at Duke.
Yeah.
He scored 6 points, guys.
I'm looking at Duke's schedule just because I was kind of curious who they're playing upcoming. You thought this one was bad? You wait till their next game.
Oh, they got Army on Sunday.
Yeah, Army on Sunday. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously those games are going to be what they are, but when they get into the crunch of the ACC schedule, I mean, if I'm an ACC team, I know that, you got that chip. Oh, we're not afraid of anybody.
We'll say it looks like it's really getting a swing in early January where they go Clemson, Wake Forest, Florida State, Syracuse, Virginia consecutively.
It's not like this team, like that was a hostile environment they walked into.
Yeah, it was almost like a Kentucky home game.
And I mean, they as freshmen were not afraid. And Jay Billis kept saying it. These freshmen are playing fearlessly. And as long as they can continue to do that, whether it's at North Carolina, whether it's at Clemson, whether it's at Boston College where Duke's always had problems, whether it's at Syracuse, as long as these freshmen continue to play fearlessly, those road games won't matter.
No, that's the scary thing. And like we say, it's one game. I get it, but this is one game against arguably one of the best teams in the country.
And against one of the teams that routinely, like the top 10 is loaded with their starters.
Yeah, and I mean the crazy part is like they got out to at one point, even in the first half, they still got out to a 20-point lead.
Yeah.
They still were out. So I mean the fact that they were playing to this level as freshmen. I mean, if you watched, the documentary, obviously Coach K had a lot of question marks going into this year because he didn't know how these freshmen were going to respond. And he's had great freshmen before.
Oh, yeah.
And Brandon Ingram comes to mind. And these guys didn't necessarily play great out the gate. That team that they had last year was projected to be, undefeated, make it to the national championship game, and they fell short just because the freshmen weren't able to live up to that. And now this team comes out and beats Kentucky like this. I mean, this is a team last year that lost to Michigan State in the same tournament and lost by 10. And everybody, question marks, is Duke going to be able to perform? What are they going to do in these big games? They had that really bad loss at home last year. I mean, uncharacteristic of a Duke team. Now this team comes out and beats Kentucky the way that they did is wild.
It's absolutely, for me being a Duke fan, I love this. So I'm ecstatic about the season.
Well, I mean, I mean, you and we're right there. We're Duke fans. I mean, I cheer for Duke too. I love Coach K. Obviously, being that I'm a basketball coach. Obviously, you look up and idolize him as anything that he does. So I love watching the success that they have. And all the Duke haters, I will eat your tears.
Yeah,
give me your Duke tears because I will put them in for my coffee.
Because how crazy is it that we're talking game 1? And they literally shook everybody in college basketball.
They're going to be a traveling sideshow right now.
Yeah, and you can't say they didn't. You can't say that if you're sitting there watching the game at home and you're playing D1 and you got Duke on your schedule or you got the opportunity to be playing them possibly in the Final Four. I know we're talking way down the road. But if you're in a top program in the United States and you're watching them and you saw that display, tell me you did not get a little shook.
Well, I mean, Zion Williamson already had people just in awe just from his Instagram page.
Yeah, his Instagram page.
And I mean, they talk about it all the time on the Duke documentary, which is on the ESPN Watch app. And I mean, if you can see it, watch it because it's great, insightful stuff into these kids' lives. But I mean, he's talking about it all the time. Like people are going up to him, asking him for autographs that he's playing against that are seniors.
Yeah,
because they're flabbergasted by him.
I mean, how wild is that? I mean, just to think about this is going to be one of those legendary teams that they're going to be doing a documentary on.
And they are right now, which is great.
Right, no, but we're talking like legacy down the road.
I mean, this, let alone the fact that RJ Barrett reclassified to be in this Division II because he technically, because of going to school in Canada, actually could have been a year behind and, been the number 1 pick, period. To reclassify to join with these guys is wild because if you're one of these fans of the bottom 5 teams and you're looking at Zion Williamson or RJ Barrett, this isn't the Anthony Bennett draft.
No, this is not.
This is not that draft class. Like you're literally, if you're in the top 5 pick, you're going to get a top 5 player. Period.
I know this will never happen, but how crazy?
Oh God, I was dreaming about it last night. I absolutely was.
Okay, I mean, obviously,
I know exactly where you're going.
The Knicks trade for everybody, to go get him, or this team. What I was originally going to say actually is if this team stays together and decides not to go to the NBA.
Okay, stop.
And just
that was. I didn't think you were going there.
No, of course.
I thought it would be great if the Knicks could get a second round for another lottery pick.
I mean, I'm not saying, but I'm saying, start trading everybody, sacrifice the season.
I mean, I as much as I love Porzingis, if they could get another lottery pick and get Barrett and Zion Williamson together in the NBA, I would love it. But I mean, it's never going to happen. But I mean, just like this guy is 6'7", 285.
Yeah,
and can jump out of the gym.
And all he needs to do is develop a jumper.
Oh, that's it. That's all he needs.
Yeah. Arguably,
he already has the post game.
Mm-hmm.
Already, obviously, can run in transition, can handle the ball, and I mean, let's not sleep on R.J. Barrett either, because that kid, I mean, he can play point forward, he can shoot, he has a post game, he plays defense. The wingspan that the kid has. Listen, I would just, if the Knicks could get one of these guys, Zion or R.J., I would just be just as happy as a clam.
I tell you what, there's got to be so many teams in the NBA that are making scouting reports right now after last night's game.
They wish that the one and done rule was not there, because
Yeah.
they would love to get these kids in the NBA right now.
Yeah, because I tell you what, Duke made a statement last night. But let us know what you think. What's your thoughts on Duke's team this year in the NCAAs? We want to know. Hashtag it up with us, ODPH. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Mike Pappy from Rye Bread, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH, and I have to make a correction because I know I got a little too amped up last segment. So we can't forget about the Western Conference bottom five of Phoenix, Dallas, New Orleans, Minnesota, and the Lakers. They're going to be on the Duke sweepstakes when it comes draft time too. So definitely get ready to watch that when it happens. But, Pad, let's go into that local minute.
Well, of course, looking at a little Binghamton Devils news because, hey, can't pass up on them. This current schedule, Wednesday, November 7th, they are away at the Sound Tigers. Friday, they come home for a homestand against the Checkers. Game time, 7:05. Saturday, they're playing the Utica Comets. Excuse me, I almost said Comets. Game time, 7:05. For more tickets and details, binghamtondevils.com. Looking over at the standings, they are currently sitting at, there it is, third place behind the Rochester Americans and the Cleveland Monsters. So making some moves and moving up in the standings.
I definitely got to the game on Friday night for the overtime win, and it was a fun time. And I tell you what, this Binghamton Devils team is playing very gritty.
Uh-huh.
They're definitely skating hard. They're definitely working every shift they're on the ice. They're fun to watch. I mean, there's not like a real big superstar per se, but they're definitely playing like a team. They're starting to gel, and it's really fun to watch them play now. And definitely, if you got a chance to get down to the Devils games, get down and go support your team because they're definitely making some moves. Coach, you got some Binghamton Bulldogs news for us?
Yeah, after a bounce-back win this past weekend against the Oneonta Octane, the Binghamton Bulldogs are coming back for a homestand here both Saturday and Sunday. Saturday is an 11:10 or a 7:05 start time. I'm sorry, and then Sunday is a 6 o'clock start time, with Saturday's game being against Elmira. So head down to what is now being dubbed the Dog Pound 2.0 or Davis College's gym and catch a game.
I tell you what, I got to the game against Oneonta, and it was definitely a fun night down at Davis College, or the new Dog Pound. We're going to have to talk to Jimmy Evans about figuring out what is the official name now for the Dog Pound 2.0, because I figure they need something a little classier, a little something, je ne sais quoi with that.
Well, it's definitely better than the Dog Kennel. So
yes, this is true, and definitely the team showed up, and it was a tough game. Oneonta was nothing to sneeze at, and they were definitely hanging in there. They got out to a big jump on the first half, but the Bulldogs are scrapping, and they're definitely coming back in there. I mean, David Hay had a great game. Cartwright, did his thing too. I mean, the whole squad there is coming together at the right time, and they're definitely doing some big moves. So they're definitely fun to watch. So if you got the chance to get down there, and especially they're going back to back this weekend. So there's no reason not to get to one game at least.
And I mean, the Giants don't play the 49ers till Sunday night or Monday night, you Giants fans. So you have a reason to do something now.
Yeah, we don't even need to talk about Buffalo. We don't even need to. I don't have anything to say. Even Pad's like trying to tell me cut off. Don't.
No,
say
hey,
that.
listen, you guys got a shot. Sam Darnold is not playing this Sunday.
I mean, there's a shot, folks. There's a shot. Will that be my lock and leap? Stay tuned. But for more Binghamton Bulldogs info, check out binghamtonbulldogs.com. And Parlor City Sports has been doing some articles on them too, so make sure to give them a quick look on Facebook as well. So let's go into that rounding the bases segment, shall we, Pat?
Mm-hmm. Well, I got two things. First is a little bit of an extension off Local Minute. Interesting little thing got announced on ESPN's Pardon the Interruption, where, of course, you have Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser are both hosts of the said show. Michael Wilbon, of course, being an alumni of Northwestern University, and Tony Kornheiser being an alumni of course, our own Binghamton University.
Most famous alumni.
Arguably.
They are taking their show, PTI, on the road. Of course, Binghamton University is playing Northwestern University in basketball this year, specifically November 16th. They will be bringing Pardon the Interruption to the newly renovated Welsh Ryan Arena at Northwestern University, and they'll do the show. And they're even going to be on the broadcast on ESPN News. Game time set for 6 p.m., so look out for that. Of course, people know me as the baseball guy. Be a little remiss if I didn't mention this. Report came out today that late last season, the Washington Nationals offered Bryce Harper a 10-year, $300 million offer, and he turned it down. Now, of course, the wide speculation is, why in God's name would you turn this down? Well, running speculation and my personal speculation is, allegedly, the contract did not include an opt-out clause, which, I mean, I look at Robinson Cano's contract with the Seattle Mariners, where it was a 10-year, $240 million deal. He's currently going into year 6 of the contract, and I was reading an article just this past week where basically almost everyone on that Seattle Mariners team is up for sale. So if you look at the Bryce Harper situation, why would he want to commit to a 10-year deal for a team where there's no way of him getting out short of a trade? And really, with a contract that massive, who's going to want to take him? Why would you commit to a team for 10 years where you could get 3-4 years into the deal and all of a sudden, hey, we're not doing too well, fire sale, everybody's got to go?
Yeah, it's a little wild to see because especially when you talk baseball, it's crazy when you start hearing the contract numbers. Mm-hmm. And especially a 10-year deal. You know what? I could understand as a player you might want to opt out, but as a team, if you're making that much of a commitment to a player, I could understand both sides of the argument.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I mean,
for him, it doesn't kind of bug me as much as it did with some players because he just turned 26 last month. So
yeah.
He's still young. He's still got his prime years ahead of him. This isn't like, Albert Pujols or Robinson Cano, who are a little older than Bryce Harper is right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a catch-22, no matter how you want to go with it. I mean, like for me, if I'm being a GM, I sign for 5. Mm-hmm. That's for me. I don't sign any contracts longer,
right?
Because for that time period, you're getting arguably the prime of the player that you're signing.
Yeah,
I mean, they might have some good years after. It's tough, but you got to kind of look at it in that aspect because 10 years is a long time.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, Yankees fans are wondering, are we going to get him? We going to get him?
Stop.
According to Buster Olney of ESPN, he was told by a source that, quote, it's not happening. He's not going to be a Yankee, close quote. My quote, thank God.
No need for him there.
No.
None. I still think he winds up with the Cubs. That's been my pick since day one. So
I can see it.
I fully think he goes out there.
And for my round of the bases here, I'm going to talk about the college football playoffs, fellas, which is now in its second week of being out. The first week is kind of whatever. It's just, naming the teams and everything.
Sure.
And it's so early in the year. We're still in October.
Sure.
But now things are getting serious.
Okay.
We're in November, and it's cuddle season, guys.
Uh-huh.
Teams are going to start to get ready to either, win these final games or, lose, and they're out. So right now we got Alabama sitting at number 1. Of
course.
Shocker.
Yeah.
I mean, the Citadel, it's all I'll say. Shout out to Sal and Guy Galore.
Yes.
Clemson, number 2. They're also playing JV teams, so yeah, there's that. My beloved Notre Dame Fighting Irish sitting at number 3, and Michigan 4. Your first 2 out are Georgia and Oklahoma. Guys, I'll tell you, I was very, very nervous going into the rankings this past week when they got announced last night that Michigan was going to jump Notre Dame just on the fact that, well, the committee's done weirder things, and Michigan's playing very good football right now.
This is true.
Even though Notre Dame has had one bad game against Pitt, Michigan, obviously almost losing to Northwestern on the road. Shout out to Notre Dame for winning by 10 and covering the spread last week at Northwestern. But, the committee did the right thing by putting Notre Dame ahead of them. Rounding out that bottom there is LSU, Washington State, West Virginia, Ohio State, which I was very surprised to see Ohio State not move after last week's idle, not having a game last week while other teams were playing. West Virginia jumping up to the 9th spot was a bit surprising. Obviously, LSU is going to fall, losing to Alabama. When I say losing, I mean being dismantled by Alabama at home. It's just not fair right now that Alabama's playing these teams. Even it don't matter who they play right now. But obviously things are starting to heat up. Once we start to get into bowl season here, and once we start to get into the conference finals, obviously Notre Dame has to win out in order to stay in the playoffs because they do not have a conference championship to play for. Some tough road games coming up for Notre Dame, Syracuse, USC, so we'll see where they land. Clemson, obviously, all they have to do is win the ACC title, and they're going to be in. And the big question mark is going to be what they do here with this Alabama, Michigan, and Georgia situation, because obviously if Michigan wins the Big Ten, you got to imagine that they're in. And then Alabama and Georgia are going to have to play each other in the SEC title game. So, if Alabama loses in the SEC title game, do we see two SEC teams get in? Or is it going to be a situation where one of them loses and whoever loses is out?
A lot of questions there. College football is one of those, somebody's always going to be on the outside looking in.
That to be the 5th team is, just basically a kick in the pants. It just hurts.
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be any real remedy for that situation anytime soon. I mean,
not until they let 6 teams in.
But they need to. They got to figure a way to do that. I mean, granted, they've taken steps in the right direction, getting playoffs involved, but there's still work to be done, in my opinion.
I mean, the biggest problem to me is that, and as much as I understand why Notre Dame doesn't do it, they have to join a conference. Mm-hmm. It needs to be done, and I understand why they don't do it because of the television rights with NBC. But at the end of the day, when you're sitting here, and the right thing to do would be to name all the Power 5 champions and put them into this situation, put them into the playoff picture. Oh, yeah. When you've got an independent like Notre Dame who plays a solid, and they do play a solid strength of schedule. It's not their problem that USC and Florida State are garbage right now. They scheduled them anyway. At the end of the day, this team being an independent really kind of is almost like a mid-major in the NCAA basketball tournament, just putting things up on their head there.
It's going to be something to watch and see moving forward, so definitely stay tuned for that. So for my round in the base segment, UFC action is going on this weekend, and if I am doing my math right, it is the 25th anniversary from the first show they did in Denver many, many years ago. It's a fight night, so it'll be on FS1. Korean Zombie is fighting Yair Rodriguez.
Sold.
Yeah. This one can definitely be a fight of the year candidate. I mean, obviously, seeing the Korean Zombie back in the cage is always a good thing. He's going to stand in there and just throw punches, and good luck trying to knock him out.
So if you've never seen a UFC or MMA fight, this is one to see.
Get on YouTube and find Korean Zombie versus Leonard Garcia.
Yes.
And just
oh my goodness,
sit back and say thank you on Twitter or Facebook, wherever you catch us on. So, obviously, he's going against Yair Rodriguez, who has kind of been in and out of the UFC. It's kind of like a messy situation, so I don't even want to get into it. But his last fight was against Frankie Edgar, where Frankie just mauled him.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, Rodriguez is definitely a good fighter up and coming, and he obviously just got picked apart by Frankie, so I'm interested to see what kind of performance he puts on. I do like the Korean Zombie in this one, though. It's, like I said, to knock him out is near impossible, and to beat him is almost impossible, too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be something to watch. And in the co-main, Donald Cowboy Cerrone is fighting Platinum Mike Perry.
Ooh.
I expect a lot of punches to be thrown.
Uh-huh.
This probably won't be a very technical fight because I could see Cerrone just wanting to stand and bang with him.
Yeah.
The entire time. Honestly, I think we win as fans.
Yes.
So if I got to make a prediction, I'm going to take Cerrone.
Yeah.
Not by much, but I think he's in front of his home crowd, if I'm not mistaken. And, I mean, it's Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah.
He's going to definitely want to stand up there and throw some until somebody gets knocked out. And if he gets knocked out, yeah, he'll at least own up to it and have a beer after. So can't go wrong with that. Going into locks and leaps, Pad, why don't you start us off?
Well, looking at my lock this week, I was looking through, nothing really jumping out at me. And then one jumped out at me in like bold typeface, lights, music, and the whole 9 yards, and I could not pass it up. Now, I know I passed on some low-hanging fruit last week. I can't do it this week because this one's just too good to pass up. I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs in a lock and blowout of monumental proportions over the Arizona Cardinals. Ken, do you want to take a guess at what the current line in this game is?
All right, Kansas City home?
Yep.
Okay, we're talking at least 14. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 17.
Close. 16.5-point favorites for Kansas City.
Tip of the cap there. Well done, sir.
Oh, holy cow. Couldn't pass up on that one. Switching over to my leap, I'm going to look at the Washington Redskins and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. Game time of 1 o'clock in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is currently a 3-point favorite, but I'm just looking at it. Something about those Redskins. I think they're going to pull out the win on that one.
I mean, it's Fitzmagic, so you never know what you're going to get there.
This is true.
Probably a safe pick if I have to guess, but we'll have to see where I take. Coach, what you got for yours?
All right, so that Kansas City game did look awfully attractive, but damn you, Pad. I won't dip twice in that pool. So let's go elsewhere. So for my lock, I'm going to go with the Chargers facing the Raiders at 9.5-point favorites on the road. But I mean, that messy situation that is the Raiders, I like that. And then for my leap, Ken.
Go with it.
I'm doing it. I'm going to go with the Bills minus 6.5. No Darnell, no quarterback for the Bills either. This is going to be a 400-yard rushing game for both teams.
You know what? This is not going to be a fun one if you're into the elite level of play. This is going to be just a rock'em sock'em backyard game.
I mean, Nick Mullins can show that third-string quarterbacks can come off the street and win games for you.
This is true.
I'm still waiting to see who the Bills are going to name as starting quarterback this week.
Timothy Richard.
They could get Timothy Richard Tebow out there, and I think they'd have a better chance than Nathan Peterman.
This is true.
This is my opinion.
There is a GoFundMe started to get Nathan Peterman out of Buffalo.
We'll get him into the Meadowlands, baby, because he's going to win this game for them.
It could happen. I actually got Sound Guy Galore JR's Locks and Leaps, which is like a rarity because if you're a new listener on Podbean, Sound Guy Galore JR is taking care of some real-world problems or issues, shall we say. He just became a dad a couple months ago. So he's obviously with his newborn, so he will be back on the show sooner than later. But his lock was Minnesota because he refused to take anybody, and they're on a bye this week.
That's true.
And his leap, he's taking the Giants.
Ooh.
He is rolling those dice.
That's as bad as going with the Bills.
I know. When he said it, he's just like, yeah, it's going Giants. Skull Nation, baby. And then that's literally how he ended the conversation. So we got,
I guess Schumer, all right. I mean,
yeah, so obviously when he's back, he's obviously becoming a father. He'll be back on the show sooner than later, so shout out to him. For my locks and leaps, my lock, I'm taking those Dirty Birds Sunday night.
Okay.
Going into Dallas, give me those 7 points. I think Carson and the company is going to definitely take it to Dak, and we'll see what happens. I know it's a rivalry game, but let's roll them dice. And my leap, I was actually surprised at this, but I'm going to go with Jacksonville +3 at Indy.
I looked at that one. I couldn't pull the trigger, though.
I'm not really feeling 100% comfortable about this, but my phone app has been blowing up saying Leonard Fournette is healthy and is going to play. So if I could at least get 50 yards, 2 touchdowns in the first half before his hamstring gives out, I'm going to call it a win, and I think that's enough to beat the Colts. We'll see what happens. But that's all we got for this week. So for our Coach Duffy,
good night and good luck.
For Padawan J,
thank you.
For all our listeners on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube, we want to say thank you as always for listening to the ODPH. My name is Ken M. We will see you next time.